Hello and welcome back to OT, the podcast, for an exceptionally special episode where we talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. My name's Felix Schultz.
And I'm Andy Green. Felix, how you going, mate?
Good. This is an unintentional throwback episode.
It's full circle. Is this the end for us?
I hope not. I mean, weird that you'd say that.
This is it.
This is not it. This is a surprise reappearance of our first ever guest.
First episode and first guest.
The first episode, I think, did we?
Yep.
Yes. The forgotten
the unreleased pilot, but this was the debut. This was season 1, episode 1. Chris Alexander, the dial artist.
3 years later, he's back.
He's back stronger, bigger, and better than before.
Yeah, I ran into, I was sitting dejectedly in the press lounge at Watches and Wonders, sad that Andy wasn't there. And then he just sort of rocked up and said, "Hey, Felix," and we chatted and we pulled out the old microphone A's and had a quick chat about what he's up to, which is really, really cool. Like when we, spoke to him, he was kind of on the cusp of being big because he was doing all the Casioak stuff, but it sounds like his world of custom watches is turned into an empire.
Yeah, so he was a teacher, I'm pretty sure. He was sort of side hustling with the Casioaks, and now he's sort of full-time.
Yeah, there's a team, Andy, but we'll...
team of artistes.
Yeah, the dial artists. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we've got a bit of news, bit of chat, bit of drama.
So you were sitting around Watches and Wonders and just pulled the mic out on him?
Well, we had like 5 minutes of small talk first, and then I'm like, "Hey,
okay,
do you mind if I do this?" And he's like, "That's a great idea." And we did it.
This is a great conversation. I wish we could record it. Oh, wait.
Exactly. We got all the non-suitable for recording stuff off first. We both sort of talked about how much we loved you, how much we really hate that brand, what we really think of those people, and then we pulled out the recording. And
but you got permission.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't a covert phone in the pocket.
No, you'll hear me whisper into my lapel, "Do you consent to this recording?"
So, yeah, all right. Chris Alexander, before we get him on, we obviously need to talk about this week's episode sponsor, TAG Heuer, who have supported us through basically your Watches and Wonders journey, Felix.
And what a journey it's been. And we can finally talk about it. The chase for Carrera, the featurette. Is it a short film? Is it an advertisement?
I think it's technically a short film.
It's very cool though. Yeah, we've just both watched it in synchronized time. What's your top line take of this star-studded cast and concept?
The concept, yeah. So as you said, is it an advertisement? Is it a short film? I mean, it's just over 5 minutes. Utilizes their brand ambassador Ryan Gosling, and the concept is effectively Ryan Gosling shooting a trailer about loving his Carrera from TAG Heuer so much that he keeps trying to steal it from the prop master, and it's sort of very heavy on the nostalgia, which I like. From the Porsche 911 to his racing jacket to the prop master, which is obviously pretty important to TAG Heuer's, history with the Monaco. So there was a lot weaved in. You can tell that it was obviously incredibly high budget from the kind of supporting cast, from the director Nash Egderton. Everything about, even the writing was really, really.
Yeah, it was
tight.
These things. It's often it can be a little cringy, but I think this one walked that really fine line of like knowing very well that this was, very tongue in cheek, but it's still got those sort of, there was some genuine lulls in there for me. And there was also
it was charming.
Solid ad education. Yeah. Charming's a good word for it. Like it
was a really charming take. And I don't care if it was an ad, to be honest. Like I think if more ads were like this, I'd be pretty happy. It was enjoyable. Yep. And as we were kind of saying, like, well, you have Ryan Gosling as an ambassador, aside from, kind of pulling him out for events and using him on billboards. What are you going to do with him? Well, this, and I think if they'd gone the route of something more serious, it wouldn't have aligned with the brand. So if this is the sort of tone or an indicator of the tone that TAG Heuer are sort of taking this year or for the next few years, I think it's pretty positive. Like I think it's quite fun. Like it epitomizes fun.
Yeah, and then that Vanessa Bayer, of SNL fame, she was really, really great, and maybe not the expected prop master choice, but a really good sort of comic foil. There was a lot of Hollywood loves making stuff about itself, so it was very, it was the making of a making of, that sort of, self-referential thing that I thought was really nice. I also liked, and this had to have been the result of a lot of creative work, that clearly they've sort of tapped into our perennial interest in like watch spotting in movies and the role of the prop master as someone that's sort of mysterious and important and all that.
The bit where he the director says, "Just tilt your watch to the light." Did that sort of bring back memories for you?
It triggered me, and I'm like, "Oh," the critic in me is like, "Oh, that's not great positioning there, Gosling." You could
swap to a macro lens.
Well, but then they had the cutaways of the actual product, which was beautiful. So I also liked the Vanessa buyer was wearing the 36mm pink.
Yes.
On the Carrera. That was a nice inclusion. David Leitch, I think, was wearing a Monaco. There was a few other sort of nice little inclusions in there, and I suspect that
a lot of Easter eggs, I feel.
And I think there's a few that I missed. Like I'm sure the people, like some of the other crew and
everyone was.
Yeah, they were people that I don't recognise. I got a question for you, Andy. The film that they were the film that they were allegedly filming, would you watch it?
Of course. Ryan Gosling driving a car is, one of my favourite activities to watch. You know what I mean? I think it's good. I think the whole thing was pretty fun.
I really we'll move on in a sec, but there was that line, that sort of that real ad copy sort of Mad Men line of like one last spin around the dial.
Yeah.
Like how much thought went into that?
I want to know what the original pitch was and how much pushback it got. I feel like that'd just be like a fascinating conversation. It was someone idea to use, hey, let's get Ryan. Let's do like a little mini film where he's wearing the watch, but he doesn't want to give it back. And it's this notion that, Ryan Gosling, an ambassador for TAG Heuer who can get any watch he wants and, does okay for himself, could buy whatever watch he wants, but he's just so entranced by it that he just doesn't want to give it back and, a pursuit ensues. So I think that would have been a funny pitch. That would have been a funny meeting to get involved in.
For him as well. Like, I can imagine certain former ambassadors or ambassadors for other brands that this would not fly with, but yeah, the right person for this. Yeah, I find it fascinating, the whole brand ambassador side of things, and I think this is quite a smart and kind of novel way to do it. Like it's cooler than just a billboard,
100%. Well, thank you to TAG Heuer for supporting us years now. Make sure you check out the film. We'll link it up in the show notes and, of course, tagheuer.com.au for all your wristwatch needs.
Specifically your Carrera needs and, Aqua Racer needs as well and other, TAG Heuer collections. But we do need to talk about some other watches, Andy Green, and another throwback to OG OT days.
Sure.
In a sort of convoluted way. Hublot released the third installment of a trilogy of collaborative watches with Sang Bleu, founded by Maxime Bouki. What do you think of this?
So if you aren't across the Sang Bleu, it's a geometry overload. Probably, from what I've heard, it's Hublot's bestseller for the years that they have released it. I think this will be pretty up there. This is more of a geometric take on kind of the tonneau case, but what I really like about it is the crystal, which is a little bit divisive. The crystal, because it does have kind of angles to it, which is not that common in watches, but we should expect the not common from Maxime
and from Hublot as well. I think it's there's like 3 versions. There's titanium, there's all black ceramic, there's king gold, and there's a couple of gem set options in the the titanium and the gold. It's a big boy of a watch, and what I like about it is that, so it's the Spirit of Big Bang with that tonneau shape, but Sang Bleu, they've pulled it out into like even more of a, like they've elongated the case into the end links, I guess, of the bracelet, so that it looks like the dial looks like a diamond, like really accentuating that geometric,
it's got like facets. The crystal has facets to it.
That's sick. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, and so it is based on the Spirit of Big Bang, I guess, as you sort of point out. Limited edition, I think all 3 of them.
They mostly make limited editions. My theory with Hublot and these editions, like that they do with the collaborative ones, like this is obviously the Sang Bleus are, my sort of favorite Hublots for the last little while. Another one I really, really liked was the Samuel Ross collab they did last year.
Yeah, that was really cool.
They've also got the Orlinsky ones, but I think that Hublot's really at its best when they sort of they get other people to push their boundaries. Like they seem to be really open to getting someone in and saying, okay, this is your case shape, and letting them mess with it or, cause headaches for the R&D and tooling departments, whereas other brands will be like, yeah, you can mess with the dial, that's all you get.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The design is really quite innovative. Like, it's a new take on that tonneau case, which I quite like. Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'm glad to see that sort of Maxim is still doing work with Hublot.
And my theory is that when it's a great area to sort of like field test new concepts or new trends, because they'll get integrated into the iteration or the updates of their designs. Like, maybe things will start looking a bit more geometric, or they'll add a few more angles to the case. And yeah, I think it's really, really smart watchmaking. And I'd like to try one on IRL at some point.
I'm sure we'll get a chance pretty soon, Felix. But something you probably won't get to try on is this unique Rolex Yachtmaster that sold at auction. So the sales just kind of, the hammer's just fallen on the sale, I should say. This was a watch that was made for the old kind of president of Rolex to mark the millionth Oscar movement sold.
Yeah, Robert Heiniger, was that his name? Rupert, something?
Rupert Heiniger. Yeah. So this had it's platinum Yachtmaster, which is obviously pretty special. But the dial was, gem set with the markers. So sapphires and rubies. It was the 10 mil chronometer, sorry.
10 million seems. Oh, that's why on the dial, Andy, it says Dix Millionaire Chronometer, which means 10 million chronometers.
Yeah, so it was commissioned by Patrick Heiniger, who took over from his dad. So
we were all wrong.
You said Patrick, didn't you? You said Rupert or Patrick?
I said Robert.
Oddball watch to come up. It's just so unlike obviously he moved on from Rolex, but this kind of getting out there into the public just feels very un-Rolex. They probably bought it, to be honest.
I mean, yeah. How did it get out there? That's a very interesting.
Well, he must have sold it. He must have, or his family must have put it up.
He was like the architect, as far as I know, Andy. He was the guy that turned Rolex into an in-house manufacturer. Like, how I know you know this because you wrote an article for a Collector Man about it. How they he was the one that bought all the suppliers, like the guys that make the screws, the guys that make the crowns, like all those companies. He brought them all into group ownership. That was his main sort of contribution to.
Yeah, and it's probably why Rolex is what it is today. What I find interesting is not the first. This wasn't the only watch he did this to. So he also commissioned some platinum Daytonas in the late 90s. I think there were 4, and he kept one for himself, but the others have sort of popped up. Makes you think? Do you reckon the current kind of president of Rolex is doing this sort of thing? I mean, you would, right? Like, you just be, hey, can you just like put this in here and make me something special, guys?
Yeah, why not? I mean, yeah, I think you would. Like, I mean, would you do it if you were the CEO of Rolex?
Oh, 1,000,000%. That's why you'd be the CEO.
Well, or perhaps it's the reason why we wouldn't be the CEOs.
Yeah.
Because we'd mess around with the brand identity.
Yeah, it's fascinating though. I dare say, so it sold for 2.62 mil USD. So I'd say that that's probably Rolex taking that one back, putting it in there.
And this is why it's a Yachtmaster, because it was the only design that was brought out during his reign.
His tenure. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, speaking of expensive things, people that follow me on Instagram or listen to the podcast know my coffee journey has just begun. So I've been documenting that, but I've just been buying, with all the money I'm saving, I've just been reinvesting, I should say, into accessories. I got to say, it's fun. It's
you got to you got to set it up as a company, and then you can do a little profit and loss.
I talk about it on the podcast. So yeah, I mean, it's basically a tax deduction now. Yeah. So what have I got? Some new scales. Because the other scales that I have are not as cool and pretty looking. I just bought some centrifuge tubes to dose up and then freeze coffee so that it lasts longer and to save a bit of time in the long run. I have been eyeing off, actually, this is someone we need to get on the show. I think his name's Doug, but he's got a company called Weber, and they make coffee. Yeah, I sent this to you. So his company's called Weber Workshops. Yeah. And he's very famous for his grinders. The EG series, EG1 is kind of the current one. Expensive stuff though. Everything is expensive, but also not by watch world standards.
Sure.
But he just dropped a really cool product called the Moonraker, which is basically a distribution tool. So you put it on top of your portafilter with the grounds in there, twist it around, and little wires basically rake the beans to kind of get rid of any clumps and that sort of thing to kind of make it nice and even, to reduce what they call channeling, which is, I guess like hotspots in the old puck. So he did a design that is really, really interesting and cool, inspired by basically watch movement. So it uses like a series of, I think, five or six different gears. And as you twist it, the gears twist, and it takes about 9 rotations, which feels like maybe a lot, and probably would get tiring if you're doing it professionally. But it kind of gives you nearly like 99% coverage. We'll link it up, but it's a really interesting inspiration for, a coffee problem.
Steampunk, but make it 2023.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy, the detail on his website, you kind of go, oh, this is a bit expensive, but everything, the presentation, the quality, the product, the detail that he puts in. I mean, he's got like scans of like the coverage. So it's like 1 rotation, 2 rotation, 3 rotation, and it shows how it doesn't hit the same spot twice. So you kind of get that. It shows you how many times through the spirographic kind of process it takes to cover everything, which is pretty cool.
I have a question for you. On the scale of this improves my life to Richard Mille press release, where is it?
This is cool. This is not essential. This is a very cool accessory.
So leaning.
Well, to put it in perspective, I'm using like a distribution tool that costs probably like $22, and someone made a 3D printed part and uses acupuncture needles. So
Sure.
this sells for 417 Australian dollars for the standard, and the very fancy one sells for 720. So
Clearly you've ordered 10 of the fancy ones.
It's sold out, so it's back on pre-order. We'll see if I
love it. I love it. This, if only I love it, Andy, because I can send you memes about ridiculous coffee culture and say, "Is this you now?"
It is. It is. I love it. I love it. What have you been up to?
I got a problem.
What's that?
I've been thinking about Substack again.
Oh, really? Firing it back up? I was thinking about your Substack this morning, actually.
It's probably I sent through. I sent you a DM about someone, a colleague from Scotland that's doing a Substack. Oh, this will be good. And I'm always jealous of Chris Hall and his spectacular Substack. But I signed up to someone else's or something, and I checked it out. I'm like, I should do something with it, but it's, I don't know what. Do I just turn it into OT the newsletter? Just pump out the show notes there.
Yes, that's a great idea, Felix. I am in support of this.
I guess I've committed to it.
Why don't we float the idea in our Discord? Why don't we get some feedback from our Discord, which of course everyone has joined up and is a part of.
Yes, naturally. Because I'm just going to have a look. When did I send out my last blast? Let's find out. Excuse me for this live.
I would say it's been a minute, Felix.
You want to guess?
I'd say 2 years.
Now, it's only telling me June 30, 2020.
So nearly 3 years, Felix.
Mate, I was linking to Miss Tweed.
All right, well, let's fire that back up. What else have you been doing?
Speaking about firing it up, I watched the Mario movie. That was hilarious and surprisingly good because it's school holidays here and that's what you do.
Yeah, love it. Highlight from the film?
Honestly, the soundtrack. Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, all the Mario tunes are sort of pretty iconic. And to hear like modern arrangement on like a good stereo system, in the right sort of environment, it's like it's not Hans Zimmer, but it's not Hans Zimmer,
Okay, so you had a good time. Chris Pratt was good.
Yeah, everyone was good. The whole cast was good. Seth Rogen was great. Clearly, obviously, Jack Black was the star of the show and has been the star of all the media tour around it. And his, I desperately want to know the deal that he got for releasing his Peaches song in that he performs in the movie on iTunes. Like, does he get that money, or does that all go to Nintendo? Because that would not be insignificant.
He's so good. I rewatched School of Rock recently, and I did not regret a part of it.
Nice. White Lotus. I'm really hoping we get Jack Black in season 3 of White Lotus. That'd be incredible.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just want more of Jack Black. Like, it's time.
He's incredible. Speaking of incredible, not something I've done, but something I'm doing tomorrow night. There's a Breitling event at Melbourne car place, Dutton Garage, which should be super cool. But I'll report back on that. They're launching, I believe, the top time and maybe the premiere down there, but should be nice.
The dust has settled from Watches and Wonders, and they've got their kind of it's their moment.
Well, yeah, and I guess everyone's now doing the local activations of the international releases. It's
cars and watches, isn't it? It's the theme: cars and watches.
TAG Heuer,
it's all syncing up.
Everyone likes cars. Speaking of someone that likes cars, I don't know. Does Chris like cars at all? Let's get the dial artist on. Let's have a chat.
Let's get Chris on.
You run into some surprising people in the PAL Expo, but I did not expect to see Chris, aka the dial artist, come up to me in the press lounge in all the world. Chris, how are you? It's so good to see you and speak to you after what must have been several years.
Yeah, no, walking past, saw your face, and I couldn't not walk past. So it's lovely just to kind of see a familiar face in such a busy crowd. And yeah, my first Watches and Wonders, my first, I suppose, Geneva visit. So
is it appropriate to say, since we chatted to you, you were, I don't know, I imagine working out of your garage and, painting your watches. But you've come a long way, baby.
Yes, well, yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, you guys are probably the first kind of people we spoke to several years back, and it's been a huge domino effect. Going from working, in a small little studio in the house to now in a couple of months, we're moving to a 500 square meter complex in Sweden. So we're growing rapidly.
Do you have staff?
IFL watches, we have 12.
Yeah.
We're expanding to 16 in a couple of months.
Yeah.
4 on the watch production side, and the rest are all kind of social media, website, digital
the other
content
bits of
creation.
business.
Yeah. It's an incredible journey.
So tell me, so IFL, that was it originally a Facebook group or Instagram account?
It was an Instagram account.
Yeah.
We still do have that, but we're kind of more moving towards the product aspect, e-commerce aspect. So
yeah, sure.
we're trying to expand our portfolio of products.
Yeah.
IFL Watches before I joined was very much kind of watch stands, leather products, also sourcing other really clever, creative individuals.
Yeah.
Still doing that. We still create a lot of our own stuff.
Yeah.
But we're trying to then really come out with a creative aspect and, kind of break the boundaries of what the norm is in the watch industry.
And when you sort of started, I mean, it was always a bit of a... your relationship with the official brands was maybe not, what you were doing was maybe frowned upon. I don't know if Casio loved what you did, or how are you here in the halls of the Swiss? How's that? Are they?
I think I fly under the radar quite successfully
good,
still.
Good.
There's a couple of people that you might bump into, and then when you mention who you are, they're like, you. And now, geez, when we started a couple of years ago with the Casioaks, we were running around left, right, and centre trying to source watches from literally the entire globe. Right now, Casio reached out, and we're now an authorised dealer of G-Shock.
Really?
Yeah. So we obtain the watches straight from source. They love what we do, and I think that's such a refreshing approach to what we do these days. They know that we have been doing it for years. They know the quality. We have dedicated high professional watchmakers that work for us now. So we're seeing a trend, and now today Watches and Wonders. We're meeting with other brands.
Nice.
Kind of having discussions with them.
Rolex, definitely going to happen.
Do you know what? They're so low key.
Honestly, Rolex have kind of,
Oh well,
they've got a watch sort of in the vein of what you're up to.
Yeah, I've had many Instagram comments about that one, which I do giggle about. But no, it's refreshing to kind of speak to people, and I think that's especially from, I'm sure you guys get it as well from a media aspect. The brands are starting to really see the impact of what was probably seen as a more rogue avenue of content creation to now seeing how YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all these kind of platforms can push a brand, and I think they've seen that as well with us, with what we're doing on watches.
We at OT this year we've been talking a bit about watch collaborations are obviously, I don't know, they're eating the market. And we've been talking about the four-way collaboration. It's got to get ridiculous. What's your thought? Are you concerned that there's going to be too much of it, or are you worried about the sustainability of that sort of model, or are you okay with it?
From our perspective with what we do, I think we're lucky in terms of we do something that not that many people that we know that many people are doing, direct dial work. We're starting to explore case work. We're starting to do other things as well. And we're really trying to pitch in at a market where previously it was accessible to people. I mean, you'd normally have really high-end watches at really expensive customization prices. We're trying to come in at a more affordable price for, the everyday collector. Still not seen other people do that. The collaborations we see between brands or B2B brands and so forth, they're brilliant. We love it.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing anything that kind of hits into our kind of niche, which is great. But we would love to work with these people.
Two questions to wrap it up. Three actually. What's the most popular area that you're working in? Is it still the Casios, or is he seeing other stuff come through?
Right now, the Tissot PRX is just it's on fire. Not to mention what other watches we're going to do in the future, but we feel as if that really has turned the tide with what we're doing and moving away. Still doing lots of G-Shocks, but maybe our focus is now more towards moving up a wee bit as well. Yeah.
And without sort of dropping names or spoiling future things, is there something like maybe moving beyond dials? Is there something you're looking forward to do, or like a frontier in sort of customization that you're hoping to crack?
I mean, our long-term goal is to be to make our own watch. I don't think anybody who isn't in this industry would love to have a go at making their own watch. Sure. That is a very much a long-term goal. I mean, we would love to do more, apart from dial, more work on movements, if possible, whether it's rotor work, bridge work, anything like that.
Yeah, cool.
Skeleton watches are a huge thing that we'd love to get into.
Yeah.
And then there's casework as well. I mean, you walk around Watches and Wonders and you can see just a plethora of materials people are using. So we're trying to find our feet in those avenues as well.
Last question before I let you go, before I run off to my next meeting. Where can people find out more about you?
Overall, IFL Watches, so it'd be IFL Watches on Instagram.com for our website.
Nice.
Me personally is the Dial Artist.
Still the Dial Artist.
Still
dialing away.
Still dialing away. So I'm only on Instagram. I'm not that huge on any other platform.
Yeah, of course.
But would love to connect with people and reach out and say hello.
It's so great to run into you.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm so glad I could chat to you after all these years.
I know.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Felix, I am shattered that I didn't get a chance to meet Chris in person. Full circle, we've closed the loop, but we will be back next week. So I'm glad you got to chat to him. Thank you, TAG Heuer, for supporting today's episode of OT the Podcast. Make sure you go check that video out.
Yes, it's worth it. We want your reasoned, your homework is 300 words of analysis in the OT Discord by this time next week. You will be marked. It's not passed.
Watches in film, yeah. If you want to send us an email, otthepodcast@gmail.com, ot.podcast on your socials.
Thanks. It's been great chatting to you all.
Make sure you subscribe to Felix's potential Substack. Join our Discord, as we always say. 5-star reviews. Stay happy. We'll see you guys next week.
See you later, Gators.